Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I run and drive, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I run and drive, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FPV News with JB and ItsBlunty. How you doing, Blunty?
Hey Josh, how's it going?
I'm doing good, and I'm super excited to bring everybody all the FPV news from this week.
Absolutely.
FPV news. What do we got oh, that's really great. Every live stream is going to get better with watch this, Blunty. Watch super chats for Henry. Dogs, man. What can you do?
Henry would like a new toy. So.
All
Just
right.
kidding. He's a good boy though.
He is. He
Oh.
is. He's a good boy.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show today. I'm pretty excited.
What do we got lined up for this week?
So this week we are going to talk about the Alauda Airspeeder. It's back.
It's
And,
back.
Apparently
back.
it's approved, and they're going to do stuff with them. So we'll talk about that. And
Yeah, the last
hopefully
time we saw it, they flew it on R9 and failsafe because it was set to the wrong frequency. So when they said, "Hey, now we're going to start putting people on board," I was like, "That sounds newsworthy."
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Sure, they'll do better this time.
So RedCat has come out with some information about their goals and have all those companies fit together. So we'll
Yeah.
go over that.
Yeah, finally figure out what's in their, what's in their mind. What are they doing?
We've got a cool program that lets you convert camera drone footage, basically fly your camera drone around and generate a 3D map of your area, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a couple community spotlights this week. We've got a Tango 2 folding antenna mod that you can do through a Crossfire module for any radio that can fit it.
Yeah.
And we've also got a community spotlight from another young pilot. We showed one, I believe that was 5 last time, and this time, this one started at 3. This guy started at 3. So
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's dogs, pets, and children. Super chats for 3-year-old FPV pilot.
He's not here though. That doesn't work.
It's true. Henry is actually here.
Yeah, Henry's here.
Okay.
All right. So we've also got the WeBleed update. We'll let you know what happened there. No spoilers yet.
No
When we get there,
spoilers.
you'll
Find out what your place was in the finals.
Yes. We're going to, yeah. And then we've got a cool story about Orqa. Orqa has integrated GoPro controls under their goggles. So we'll take a look at that and show how that'll work. So hopefully that means some other things will be coming too.
Like stop recording. Anyway, we'll take a look.
We've got a Liftoff Beginner Tournament that's being announced. It's pretty cool. You could win a gift card, some other things. So we'll give you some information about that and how to enter for beginners only.
If you're a beginner, you could win a $100 gift card or a $25 gift card. Somebody just up and ran this tournament, I guess. It's not sponsored by Liftoff, right?
No, they're going to stream it on the Facebook page, but not sponsored.
No, nice. So they are supporting it. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And last but not least, we've got a rant this week.
Who are we going to piss off this week?
Maybe TBS. Hopefully Trappy will be okay this week. But
I hope so.
We'll have a little conversation about TBS's naming conventions and why that bugs me.
Yeah. There was a time when nearly anything we said might have really sent him over the edge, but I think he's, I don't know, I think he's calmed down a little bit, and he seems to be taking some things in stride with a sense of humor. Anyway, this is going to be he's a good guy. He's always been a good guy. Yeah. This is a meaningless rant, though. We will not be, so it's just us complaining. It has no implications for, business, I hope. But before we get into all that, let me just welcome you all to the stream. Hello, you beautiful people in the chat. Hello, you beautiful people over in the Discord server. We'll be paying attention to your stuff. Although this is not a Q&A stream per se, and I always like to give the Discord server a chance to say hello to the stream. One of the benefits of being a patron is getting access to that Discord server. And there's a link down in the video description to my Patreon if you want to join up for a couple bucks, just a couple bucks a month. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can feed a starving YouTuber. I'm not starving, though. I don't look like I'm starving, do I? Hello, Discord. Hello, YouTube chat. All right. Need more coverage. Blunty, also, before we get into this, we need to follow up a serious correction to last week's episode about the pronunciation of the word PWNED.
Oh,
what did you find out?
We're going to have another problem because you said pronunciation. So no.
I did say it. Pronunciation. How do you pronounce it? We argued whether it was pwned or owned.
Yes. So I went and watched pure pwnage, and it's actually
which is
pure
the
ownage.
Origin of that. Yeah,
and it's actually pure ownage. I think that's where most people know it from, and it's own it. I think this is a case of the Mandela effect, and things have changed. I certainly remember pwnage, and that's
the Mandela effect. For people who don't know, is it refers to a phenomena where a large number of people misremember some aspect of history. Like one of the ones, and is named after the belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison, I believe, when in fact he didn't. And some people are so confused about this that they think that they've switched timelines. They're like, no, I'm sure that Chick-fil-A is spelled, is it Phil-A versus F-I-L-E-T? I don't know. There's a bunch of them. And misremembering how pwnage or ownage was pronounced, maybe an example of that, huh?
Yeah, the Bernstein Bears, Bears. That's a common one.
That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's I don't know, man. For now, it is ownage apparently, but you can say it how you want because this is.
Well, we're American. We say solder, so I mean, we can say whatever we say whatever the frick we want.
We can pronunciate solder.
Pronunciate. All right, so it's ownage.
Yes, ownage.
All right, well, with that important correction out of the way, let's get into our very first news item. Many people sent this to news@fpvknowitall.com this week, and it goes back to the Alauda Airspeeder, What do we got going on here, Blunty?
Yeah, so just as a refresher, if you don't remember the old story, there was basically the Mark II Alauda Airspeeder, and it had a pretty bad crash where there was nobody in it, thankfully, but they were trying to plan for eventually putting a person in the drone. So they did some testing, and unfortunately, they were on R9 on the wrong frequency, and they had the failsafe set up so that if the failsafe, they just took off in the air. And that's what happened with the last airspeeder that they tried to test.
Yeah.
So
it fail-safed because it was on the wrong frequency, and then when it fail-safed, it just flew away instead of, you would hope, disarming or auto-landing or something.
It flew like 9 minutes straight up into the air until it ran out of battery, and then fell back to the ground. So, however, Alauda, and I guess the Airspeeder project is back. There's a few different companies that are participating in the Airspeeder project. But Airspeeder has tested their Mark III vehicle, and they think that they've got it figured out.
Oh, good.
So let's be clear. So the Mark III, they've learned their lesson, apparently. The Mark III is not meant for people. The Mark IV will be meant. The Mark IV will be meant for people. The Mark III is for learning a bunch of stuff about how this works. It seems like is the goal. So they're actually planning to do a couple races this year with these unmanned aircraft with remote pilots. And they're planning on basically the system that they've invented here for this drone speed racing, airspeeder racing, is pretty interesting because their plan is essentially that you'll fly in laps and you'll do 10 to 15 minutes of laps, and then you'll actually have to pit. So you'll be pitting just like you would in like any other race to refuel, and you'll have a slide out battery pack, and the slide out battery pack will pull out, and then a new battery pack will slide back in.
We're looking at some footage here. Some of it is probably dramatized, but presumably that is actual footage of the aircraft flying.
Yeah, and basically, you know, right now it'll just be remote, like we said, but I think it's pretty interesting. They've got a lot more partners this time. I think they seem to understand what a failsafe is and how that should work, at least from their descriptions. Hopefully they've learned quite a bit for the last time.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like a total hater, because what they're doing is super cool, but the degree to which the screw up, the severity of the screw up the last time, on some level made me go, "What are you doing over there? Are you like?" It's hard to trust. I guess what I'm saying is it's hard to trust if they had like the freaking Challenger exploded and NASA had a total like reckoning, complete internal investigation. Where has our culture of safety gone wrong? And now NASA, I don't know, presumably has a better culture of safety. So if they had a similar sort of reckoning and now are doing things better, then more power to them. But wow, the screw up last time was pretty severe. I'm not.
Yeah, they specifically say the overall system safety of the vehicle was such that no one isolated failure can result in the loss of the vehicle. Rather, the vehicle will remain in the air at reduced performance to ensure the pilot, whether operating remotely in the Mark III or cockpit in the future, will safely return to the ground. So it seems like they at least understand the concepts, and I think they've started to understand where they went wrong. I'm sure they got a lot of nasty messages about their findings.
I mean, probably not just from YouTubers like us, but from the FAA, or it wasn't in the USA, so it was whoever the equivalent is.
The AAIB.
Yeah. They probably got a lot of questions. Anyway, good luck to them. Looking forward to that. And I do not volunteer to be the first pilot in a flying multirotor. I got to fly in a helicopter, a little tiny four-seater helicopter. I took my son on a helicopter tour this weekend just because we'd never been in a helicopter. I was like, okay, it's his birthday. And let me tell you, when that thing took off, I've been in small planes, but a little helicopter where you're just sitting in a bubble, it was just nerve-wracking moment as it took off. And I just can't imagine. I mean, at least a helicopter will auto-rotate if something fails.
I was going to say the big thing is the auto-rotation of the helicopter. At least you have a way to get down, without falling.
Like, think about what happens when a multirotor has a motor fail. It is not graceful.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being inside? It would literally be a death roll.
Yeah. They're going to have to do a lot of work there to make sure that these things don't go into death roll when they lose motors and things like that. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff they're going to get into. I'm really happy to hear but the Mark III is not meant for people, and they're just going to do this for a year or two and try to do races and like learn the process and everything without people.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, they do have redundant motors, so that's something.
Yeah.
And ESCs well-designed ESCs and brushless motors are incredibly, incredibly durable. So presumably we would be in a good condition, but wow. Yeah. What if the craft impacts an object, asks Brandon Beans. I mean, any aircraft that impacts an object is going to have a bad day. Some worse than others, for sure.
The racing they show is not really what I would call gate racing. It's more like, just like, you're kind of going in these big tracks that don't really have like walls that you're going to slam into, at least obviously. So I think that's probably something they're going to consider. It might even be electronic tracking for these things at some point, so you can't just like hit a wall on die or something. I can't imagine there's an easy way to make it safe when you slam a drone into a wall like that.
Well, they say that they're going to have some kind of LiDAR-based system that will detect oncoming obstacles and create a kind of a bubble of safety around the aircraft. That's cool. I presumably they would also have electronic anti-collision, although I don't know how you can do that when you're racing, because it's sort of inherent to racing that the vehicles get close to each other. But maybe they would build that in. I think the like, what's the worst case scenario, assuming that they did everything right? Like, what if like a freaking bird flies out of the track and just takes out 2 of your props? Like, if a bird flies into your front right motor and blows up your prop, what are the chances that it blows up both your props and now you're hosed?
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. We'll see what they can end up doing here. So
yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Also kind of terrifying, but there you go.
Yes.
Proximity and racing go hand in hand, says Brandon Beans. I don't know how this is supposed to work unless it's time attack. Yeah, we'll have to see. We will have to see.
Yeah. Very true.
All right. Well, good luck to Alauda for that, and looking forward to seeing what they come up with. We got a couple super chats here. Corals of Houston Michael Hill gives $10. Corals of Houston gives $5 for Henry. Robin Duckett gives £5, a textile stuffed drone for Henry. And Mouse FPV gives $5 with a message. JB's content helped get me into the hobby as a noob, and Blunty's activity in the Discord server has kept me going. Blunty, you're very active in the Discord server, more active than me even. And I super appreciate it. And so do all the people you help.
I try to be as active as possible, because it sucks to start with drones and not know what the heck you're doing.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's interesting. Real quick, I just want to say it's interesting because we're getting at a point where like there's now so much information, you can end up watching the wrong videos for 2 hours. Like, and that's what I see a lot of people do, is they're like, oh, look, I watched this video from 5 years ago and it told me to do this and this and this. And I'm like, well, yeah, none of you don't do any of that now.
Yeah.
Stop doing that and then go do this setting instead,
It's tough. When I get it, sometimes I'll get a comment and it will remind me that an old video exists that is no longer relevant, and I usually mark the video private. But there's so many. I make hundreds of videos a year. It's really impossible to go back, and it would also be really bad for my analytics, because a lot of those old videos still generate traffic. But I wouldn't keep them open just for the analytics if they were giving out bad information. A lot of times I'll leave a comment linking to the newer video, but it doesn't always work. It's tough.
Yeah.
You have to hope the algorithm sorts it out for you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next up, RedCat. Ooh, RedCat, always a hot topic. RedCat was going to do crypto, something to do with crypto. I don't know what. And then they had this website where they were going to make a new FPV help desk, which I think still exists, but isn't really being promoted. Then they bought a bunch of companies. Who'd they buy, Blunty?
Yeah, so they bought Skypersonic. Well, first they bought Sharkbite, Fat Shark.
Well, first they bought Rotor Riot.
Oh, Rotor Riot, yeah. Sorry, so it's been a long time. Rotor Riot, then we got Fat Shark. And then we got, was it the Skypersonic? And then the Liftoff devs?
And then Liftoff.
And so then the Liftoff.
And everybody's asking, what's your end game? You're just buying a bunch of companies. What's your end game here? Well,
yeah. So it seems like we've got an idea of what that end game is now. So it seems like their idea is like, hey, let's roll all these pieces together so that we can do stuff from anywhere on the planet. So it seems like they're pushing into that Skypersonic pathway. Skypersonic is about flying drones anyway. Rotor Riot did a remote episode where they flew across the country. And basically the idea is that they're going to take Skypersonic, and they're going to have its like SkyLogic software hooks and information and everything to hook into the Fat Shark's SharkBite digital transmitters and the digital system. And then so basically they're going to use that information in the SharkBite system to then like remotely control drones from anywhere. That seems to be the idea.
And it's easy to think about, to imagine what the applications of this are. Like things like drones are already being used for like industrial inspection, all types of industrial inspection, bridges, electric lines, anything where you need to get people into weird space. And in the past, a lot of this stuff has either been done by climbers, which is of course expensive and risky. Sometimes it's done by helicopters, which is expensive and risky. So the idea that you could have these drones doing these inspections is huge. And it seems like what RedCat is saying is that now you no longer have to have a dude on site in order to do this. We can create an infrastructure where people are doing this kind of work remotely. Does that seem right?
Yeah, we've kind of alluded to this before, but it seems like the idea is that we've got the Liftoff devs making, commercial simulation so that you can train to do all these things. And in that way, you're going to train to probably use a very similar interface to what you'll see in this SkyLogic Skypersonic interface to control your SharkBite remote drone that you're using. That seems to be the play. And I think it makes a lot of sense. They talk about using the faces and the rotor ride and stuff to kind of promote the relationships and get different things going in the industry, get people excited in testing products and stuff. They've also they mentioned a relationship with GM and Aramco. So I think they're trying to, just branch out and do as many different things as possible by pitching people to say like, hey, like you said, don't worry about flying somebody to Alaska to do your drone work. Let's just set up a drone hub there. And any drone work you need done, we'll just drive a truck out there and somebody can do it remotely and you don't have to pay the guy to be there.
Yeah, interesting. I'm excited about this because this is the first time I've heard what I thought was RedCat has had a lot of different sort of what I would call pie in the sky business plans. There's nothing wrong with that, especially at the beginning of a company. There's this philosophy where you're just going to try things. You're just going to do a bunch of different stuff and maybe one of them will pan out and you'll figure it out. And that's how it's felt to me. But this is the first time where it looks like there is a real sort of coherent business strategy. I'm also excited about the fact that it doesn't seem like when they were talking about, well, we're going to have regulation and insurance, and we're going to put your black box logs on the blockchain. A lot of people were like, well, isn't that going to encourage you to promote regulation? And this doesn't, surely there will be regulation, but it doesn't seem like it directly ties into regulation in exactly the same way.
Oh, I would say it absolutely ties directly into regulation. That's interesting. Because of beyond visual line of sight. So remote ID allows us to be beyond visual line of sight, and the only way you can do that is with remote ID. So for them, remote ID is going to be absolutely crucial to making this process work. Because without remote ID, they wouldn't be allowed to go VLOS or beyond VLOS.
Yeah, but so they're going to push, but that puts them in a position of saying we're going to push for ways to do BVLOS more easily, unless you're making a regulatory capture argument where it incentivizes them to make it hard for competitors to get in. But it doesn't. Regulatory capture usually happens when you have an established entity who is already able to meet the requirements, and then they raise the bar for everyone else. In this case, it feels like this more aligns RedCat's interests with those of the average hobbyist. I say more because you're right, BVLOS is required. So now the easier BVLOS is for them to do, the more successful their business is.
Sure, I can get that direction too. I just think if you look at how remote ID came out, the rules that we saw and how it'll most likely be implemented, that to me looks like it will work fine for what they're doing. So they don't have a reason to push to get more room on BVLOS because they can add modules to all their drones. They can follow the rules and stuff like that. Like you said, I don't know how much benefit it is to them to push this down into an easier rule. Maybe it won't be that much of a benefit because then everybody can fly their own drones. As a company, I can just fly my own drones with my own remote pilot and nobody cares.
That makes sense. The good news is that they have RedCat has and always has had, in my opinion, extremely small influence over regulations anyway. I think people vastly overestimate how much pull RedCat has. So, Mad Max FPV raises an interesting point in the chat. He says, no way is this viable. The DJI Mini and 30 minutes of training, anybody can do inspections. Huh. What do you think of that?
I think that this is the problem is the framework, right? The problem is like DJI Mini 2, at least currently, maybe DJI will find a way to do this in a way that makes sense when it's legal to do BVLOS. But like right now, there's no way for you to like have a Mini 2 in a box that you like on the other side of the country, hit a button, the box opens up, your Mini 2 flies out.
His argument is that you're going to take, you're going to say, hey, Bob, you want to be our drone? You're going to take the inspector, the guy who is already the inspector, and he's just going to get it, or she is going to get a drone and learn to fly it themselves. And then I guess the argument is that you've already got people who are inspectors. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That'll be interesting to think. That's interesting to consider, but I think there's like enough barrier there to entry, at least currently. That like I don't know that a Mini 2 is going to be like, I don't know. If that's the best thing for inspections, if that covers all the bases for inspections, if that has all the requirements that you need. Because like I know one of the big things is like it's got to be enclosed so there's no sparks, and it's got to have like it can't be affected by gaseous whatever, and it's got to be like turbulent resistant to whatever level, and like there's all these things for like let's say like inspecting an oil rig. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out.
Yeah. It also remains to be seen. Like for example, I was reading about this bridge between Memphis and Arkansas that had the bridge had a broken strut or something, and they were like, oh, who was inspecting it? And apparently the inspection is being done by state employees. So there may be cases where the inspectors, if you imagine that you're a giant oil company and you've got your own inspectors on staff theoretically, then you could imagine a scenario where rather than having inspectors in every state or every country around the world, you would have some inspectors and they would just be at your headquarters and they would fly drones remotely to complete the inspections. Like that sort of theoretically plays out. But if you're in a situation where the inspectors are state employees, for example, then maybe they don't have to travel all over the state, but it's not as much of an advantage. So
yeah, I'll say I don't know. It'll definitely be interesting to see how this all shakes out. I'll say like, somebody brought up police and fire service, right? And so I actually talked to I used to work in cannabis. I think some people know that. But basically when I was doing that, I used to give fire inspections for the building. Mm-hmm. And we had the fire inspector come in one time and he saw one of my drones on the shelf and was like, hey man, like, do you know how to fly that? Like, what do you know how to fly and that sort of thing? And he basically asked me, he's like, once COVID is over, can you come look at our drone? Because we don't know what to do with it. He said they had planted it into he called it like yard poling or something, but they planted it into the ground like 5 times in a row and just put it away because they were afraid they were going to break it.
Right. So maybe not as easy as not just like 30 minutes of training in a Mavic Mini, you're fine.
Yeah, he's like, it's a big, scary drone, and honestly, like, at this point, we're ready to, like, just hire a civilian pilot and let them handle it because we don't know what to do with it. So I don't know if that'll be, like, that may just be what they bought or what they were offered or whatever, but that's, like, one fire department's example, Denver Fire, for example. So.
Well, it's an interesting idea. Whether they are, I think the thing that makes the most sense is that they set themselves up as a contractor. So in a case where, in the same way that drone pilots sometimes get hired right now, and the inspector will be holding a screen and looking and saying, go over here, go over there, but he's not flying. Perhaps this RedCat could be the intermediary and be like over a video call or something. I don't know. It's all very speculative. But it is an actual business model of that actually is plausible and could exist. And to that, I say, RedCat, well done.
Yeah. We'll see if they can actually ever make money or go anywhere positive. Like, it's just right now, I think they've all just been like cash flow negative and buying stuff and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see if it turns around now that they have a plan. Yeah,
maybe so. Maux91, I cannot use NVIDIA RTX voice to remove keyboard noise. I'm pretty sure I have a 1080 Ti. I'm pretty sure you need an RTX, not a GTX. So you're out of luck there. Oh, just buy yourself an RTX. Yeah, let me get right on that. Hold on. I'll get my $3,000 out. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next one real quick. Just thank you, FPV, for a $5 super chat. And thanks for all you do. Yeah. Next up, Blunty. Blunty, you found us a way to, what is this software? SkyeBrowse. Let's take a look at it. Tell us about it.
Yes. Yeah, Drone DG actually pulled this up, but it's from a while back. They've just continually updated this program. But this program is called SkyeBrowse, and basically if you have an Autel or a DJI drone, basically it looks like the DJI FPV, I think, will count for this. You can fire up your phone, and then you fire up this program, and it'll help you automatically map out, locate, and then locate and then take pictures of and map out with photogrammetry, like whatever you want to do. So if you've got like a field or something, or like a whatever, that normally you would use, maybe like one of us would use iNav or RGPilot or whatever or Waypoint or Mission Planner or something like that. There's a bunch of different options. And this kind of does it all in one app, and then pulls those into a 3D model of photogrammetry for you.
Yeah. I swear I saw a flight test video 3 years ago where they did something like this. I'm sure it wasn't the same thing, and I'm sure it was way clunkier. This is not a brand new idea, is it?
No, it's not a brand new idea. It's just kind of like pulling everything together, I think, is the idea. And then it's supposed to be set it and forget it. The advertisement they kind of do is, you hit the button on the drone, and then you make your coffee and sit down and drink your coffee, read your newspaper, and when you're done with your newspaper, the 3D model is there for you to check out and do what you need to do with. So there's no human intervention, not a lot of work for someone who, especially like a random Joe Schmo who wants to map their field or whatever. Maybe this is an easy way to do it.
Yeah, this is really slick. We're just going to let this video keep playing. So there's audio that goes with the video, so if the video is paused, that's probably why somebody's talking. But when I think about what the Liftoff devs had to do to get my house into Liftoff, they started with topographical data, which is publicly available, but that was only the very beginning. And a whole lot of that stuff was built by hand. I mean, I sent them reference photos. They loved the fact that I had pallets and 55-gallon drums because they could use them as scale references. I guess 55-gallon drums are a pretty standard size.
Yeah.
So in my photos, they were like, great, we used your drum. But they did a lot of it by hand. I took measurements of my house for them, and it was weeks of work to build that. And it's not to say that this will completely get rid of that, but it seems like if you wanted to create a 3D model of a space, for example, for something like a simulator, this would be a great start of giving you stuff to work with. I don't know.
Yeah. I think previously the workflow for this is kind of like, hey, look at the area I need to go to, and then physically go with the drone and just try to take pictures of all the spots I can possibly take pictures of.
Mm-hmm.
And then find a photogrammetry program and dump everything in a folder, and then try to make the photogrammetry program make me a model. So yeah, I'm pretty, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done with it. It seems pretty cool.
Yeah. Here we got an example of it. It's circling. I hope it's avoiding. It must be staying above those. They've set the height to stay above the electric lines, but it's circling the car. And I kind of want to show I want to find the end. Like, where's the result?
So I sent you, so this is another way to map. I sent you, actually, there's a second video. And
okay, let's look at that.
That video shows the model at the end of it.
Okay. Create 3D models as fast as you make coffee. Well, that's ambitious. Oh, well, if you're going to go with a hand crank grinder, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, okay. It gets up. It flies around. You choose the movie. Oh, you brew your coffee. And then it creates... Wow, that's actually really something. That's really good.
Yeah, and watch this too. They can actually do, it's pretty neat. They can do this, but they can also do like height maps. So he like draws, and then it shows him the height map that he draws. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Of course, if you wanted to turn this into an environment in a game, for example, you might need to take the car out and put in a model of a car. You wouldn't just like dump this in, but as all 3D modeling goes, there's a lot of manual work that is not usually acknowledged by most people. So yeah, really cool. I don't know how many people watching this will be actually using that, but still really, really cool.
Yeah, neat tool. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Community spotlight time. It's time for the community spotlight. So the first one we have is 3D print. This is by TechnoPro. And this is a print that you can basically take your Crossfire module, and then you wallow out a little spot in your Crossfire module, you print these pieces, and then you snap it in, and you can snap in a Tango 2 antenna. You buy an extra Tango 2 antenna, And you snap it right in there, and now you can have a folding Tango 2 antenna right on your Crossfire module.
Yeah. Now this is super cool, but also not as useful as it might initially appear, because like I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, but actually, oh, here we go. If we take a look at my radio, see, he's using a Tango 1. If we take a look at my radio, would that work? Oh, you can't see it. There we go. If the antenna was right here, it would kind of be down in the gunk, and it couldn't fold anyway.
Yep,
so I'm not. Whereas
true.
here, it's up more, and so I don't know how many radios out there this is going to work for, other than the Tango 1, but it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, maybe like an X-Lite, probably like an X-Lite.
X-Lite, plausible, very plausible.
Yeah.
There's folks asking about the name of the 3D mapping tool, and there's a couple other folks asking about links to this Thingiverse. There's links to all the stuff we talk about down in the show notes in the video description below. So,
yeah. Yes. That last app was SkyeBrowse, but yeah, there's links to everything right down in the description.
Okay.
All right.
What else, Blunty?
And then our other community spotlight this week is from KarbonKageFPV. He's actually been on a couple of the other channels. I've seen him around on Bach Grinder and Ken Heron's channel. And he's got a little video here. This is him at 4 years old. He started at 3. He's now 5, I believe.
Yet another child who's a better pilot than me.
Yeah, this
Thanks.
is a little cut-together clip. It's a little cut-together clip of him flying some cinematic edits and stuff from a 4-year-old. So this is just quite impressive.
I'm going to go have a long talk with my son. No. I had some okay cinematic stuff. I mean, for a 4-year-old, it's okay. I'm not sure. You let a 4-year-old fly around you while you're parasailing. That's a lot of trust. I mean, even like the best 4-year-old pilot, that's okay.
That's true. That's true.
It's a lot of trust.
I think he's in the chat too. Shout out to KarbonKageFPV.
Is he? Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
All right. So now he's 5 years old. So he's probably even better.
Yes, I believe that's the case.
Okay.
I just pulled one of his videos out. I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah,
That's
go
really
check
slick.
out KarbonKageFPV. He's killing it.
Yeah.
So
Let's check out his YouTube channel. Let's see what else he's got. You got anything else?
we're gonna have all kinds of crazy pilots pretty soon. That's for sure.
Here we got a DVR rip. Ooh, that's all right. Well, this DVR is pretty dark. We'll give it a shot. Let's see his rip. This is one of his most recent videos. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely better than I was when I was 5.
Right.
or 35. Yeah. All right. You know, Blunty, people often ask, how do you know when it's safe or when it's responsible to give a kid a controller? Like what age? And I don't think there is a single number, because kids mature and grow differently. What do you think about that? How do you think you make that decision?
I'm going to say, 1, I don't have a kid, and that's why I don't have to make these decisions. 2, I don't know, man. It's hard because, boy, that's one of the hardest questions you could ask. I feel like the issue, I feel like the issue is that, like, we don't know anything about development and how that shit works. So, like, how do we know if you give a kid a controller at 2, if that's positive or negative development, because they're not, like, developing with real-world actions that, like, for thousands of years other children would have done. So maybe there's some, like, neuronal pathways that are supposed to develop at that point. However, the way the world...
You're approaching it from a different direction. You're approaching it from the question of, is it good for the kid? That's actually interesting. I was thinking more, is it safe for you and your house and your car? But go ahead, keep going. That's really interesting.
We can wreck the window or whatever. I don't care about that. If he wants to fly, like, that's what I would think, you know? Like,
nice.
Yeah, my opinion would be like, yeah, we just don't know enough about neuronal pathways and stuff like that. Like, every kid for thousands of years has grown up in these ways and, like, played with rocks and poked sticks in the dirt and, like, all these kind of things. So, like, is there some, like, core development that doesn't happen? Or is there better development that happens because we have things that better stimulate and interact with the brain and you get faster neuronal development? It's just hard to know, you know? So I don't know that. I think that's a really hard question. I think every parent has to make that decision.
Yeah, there's people who say, like, for example, kids under 13 or kids under 9 or whatever age shouldn't use VR goggles. And I'm not sure if it's because it's supposed to be bad for their eyes or bad for their brain, but there's also people who say, you know, kids under 5 shouldn't have tablets, and I'm like, shut up. When my kid's driving me crazy, I give him a tablet. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Scotty points out, which is a very, Slap points out, which is a very, like, solid thing. I'm sure it's better than Call of Duty and TikTok, which is, the thing is, most of these kids will end up with a phone because they have to have a phone to call their parents, and most of these kids will end up with a tablet because they need to see, videos or whatever, and that's how kids learn these days and stuff. I'm sure if I was a kid at 3, I would have had a tablet, or 4, I would have had a tablet to learn all my stuff. My parents bought me stuff before preschool to, like, teach me colors and numbers and all that stuff. It was all just, like, put together physical puzzles, but I'm sure that would have been apps in this day and age.
Yeah. It seems to me like there's 2 perspectives. There's 2 factors, and one is the kid's ability to control the drone, which you can verify by letting him practice on a simulator, practice with small quads, and in the same way that if you were going to let your kid use power tools or other sort of dangerous things, you sort of work them up to it. But the other one that's a little harder is the judgment to do the right thing. You could have a kid who is perfectly able to control a quad and maybe not have the judgment to anticipate a dangerous situation and get out of it, although presumably there would be a spotter. And, there's 13-year-olds who drive farm equipment and do just fine with it. So. Yeah,
I think you should definitely be like ride-alongs with anyone near that age. You should always be, like, there with them flying. I definitely would agree with that. Just so you could say, like, hey, don't get too close to that parasailer. Stuff like that. I think that's important. So.
Well, congratulations to KarbonKage there. And, yeah. Wait, now, is KarbonKageFPV, that must be the parent who's in chat right now.
I would assume.
It's not a 5-year-old kid who's typing. At first I was like, oh, he's here. Let's not swear. Well, I'd be interested. I don't know if he commented and we missed it, but we're going to continue. But if KarbonKageFPV in the chat wants to comment on how you got he started flying at 3 years old. I remember my kids at 3 years old. I don't even know if they would have had the ability to do that. Never mind so how do you start a 3-year-old flying drones? What was your thought process there? I'd be interested to hear.
I do. I will say, like, on the YouTube channel, I did see, like, the first video is him, like, learning on a sim. And the second video is him, like, flying a brush whoop around a little bit, like, physically to learn, like, how LOS stuff works. So, yeah, I think it seems like they went the proper path.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody says, Mozart. Hey, Mozart, get away from that piano. It's not good for your fingers. Sometimes kids need to do things.
Yeah, very true.
Anyway, well, we got this next one is big story, and I don't know how much information there is about it. We'll take a look at the blog post. A new tech from Orqa FPV. They're constantly pushing new technology into their goggles. What do they got?
Yes. So GoPro came out with an update called Open GoPro, where they're like, hey, you know what? You can program with an API and just do GoPro stuff if you really need to. So now that's what you can do. So they use that API and they coded in basically the GoPro interface into the Orqa goggles. So now you can see, like, all kinds of things with your GoPro. You can change settings and set recordings and resolutions and frame rates and see battery levels, and basically most of the things you could do with an app you can do through the goggles.
Yeah, right now we're just looking at screenshots, so we can just sort of speculate about what's going on there, but it looks like they've got all the settings and all the status, and it reminds me a lot of this GoPro BLE remote app that I've got on my phone. Which one of the nicest things it does, and I don't know why the default GoPro app doesn't do this, is you can save profiles like this is my FPV profile. It's 2.7K Super View, 400 ISO, Pro Tune, etc. And then you bind the camera to your phone like normal, but then you just go into the app and you apply the profile, and done. Your camera's set exactly how it needs to be. And that would be an amazing thing for them to implement. I don't know if they have.
Yeah, it is out now though. The firmware is out and you can try it. So if you've got
you can download the firmware. So you got to have Wi-Fi. So you have to have the Orqa Connect, presumably, right? The FPV Connect.
Not 100% sure how that works, but I assume that is the case. Yes.
Yeah,
and, it actually looks like the 2.8 firmware is actually not present right now. If you click through,
shoot, yeah, I just clicked through. It's not. They're like, download the 2.8 firmware. It's not there.
So keep an eye out for that.
I had heard of this feature some time back from Orqa, that it was in development. I actually wasn't I actually didn't think they had published it yet, so I'm not actually surprised to learn that it's not there. And I wonder if this is a leak. I don't know. I guess they posted it. It can't be a leak.
They posted on their Facebook. That's how I found it. So.
Yeah, but the firmware isn't there. So presumably you need the FPV Connect module to connect via Wi-Fi. And they say, they have a quote here from Mohammed Bilal, who says, this is an absolute must for everyone using naked GoPros, because you don't need your screen, you can configure it. However, you have to have not burned out your Wi-Fi by disconnecting the antenna, which I did.
Also very true. Yeah.
Anyway, very, very cool.
All right.
All right.
So we have the weekly WeBleed update we have to give everybody. So did we win or did we lose? That's the question.
Well, now this is the last race of the season going into the finals.
Yes.
I mean, we knew you were in pretty good standing. I don't think there's much chance of you losing.
Yeah, we had to get 4th or better to get down to 2nd seed, but we actually won again this week, so we got first.
First seed.
Yeah. We got first, and we got first seed into the finals, yeah. So we'll either be getting 1st or 2nd at the end of the finals. It just depends on how it goes. Yeah,
that means the worst you can do is 2nd place. Hold on, I'm rearranging the show notes because I see that I jumped the gun on this one and did it in the wrong order. Sorry about that.
No problem. And we do have.
So you're guaranteed a prize.
Yes, we are guaranteed a cash prize. Yeah, a couple $100 at least. It looks like per person. Pretty exciting. And then I'll say as well, like we do have a link we talked about a couple of weeks back, so I want to make sure to put the link in the show notes for perspective images in there, where you can go and watch that anytime you want. But yeah, the gratuitous violets have won again, so pretty good. I'm excited for the finals.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys are in pretty good standing. EDOC in the Discord points out that the Decepticons got 2nd place while missing their captain and one of their fastest pilots. So congratulations to the Decepticons as well. For pulling it out. But now we go into the finals, and it seems like you're in a pretty good standing to win. So congratulations.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. We'll see what happens, and we'll let you guys know, of course, next week.
Yeah. And then we'll have to stop doing the WeBleedFPV updates because it'll be over.
Very true.
All right. Well, congratulations, Blunty. Congratulations to all the competitors.
Yeah.
And looking forward to the final. All right, that brings us to our last. Is it our last? No, second to last. Second to last piece. There's a new tournament. Now is it a freestyle tournament? Is it a racing? What is it, Blunty?
This is racing. Yeah, so a racing tournament is being held by Blue Cheese DK. He's a member of Liftoff community, and he's decided for his own, just on his own, to put together a single elimination tournament in his Discord. And he's got a $100 Rotorite gift card for 1st place. He's got a $25 Rotorite gift card for 2nd place that you'll get right after the race. He just added the 2nd place today, so if he can figure it out, I'll probably add a little more. But yeah, you just sign up there from the 28th to the 3rd. You guys will race on the 4th, and it is beginners only, so I think he'll kind of check and see if you have a history. And of course, if you have a racing history, please don't sign up for this, because we want it to be fair for new pilots.
Yeah. Oh, wrong scene there. Yeah, what a great way. I mean, I don't know if he's just interested in giving back to the community or he's trying to do a little bit of self-promotion, maybe a little of both, but what a great way to do it, to set up this tournament. And, $100 prize is not nothing, and tournaments are fun. So if you're a beginner...
I'll say especially the small tournaments like this, in the past I've entered some of these that have like 5 people in them. So, you should enter this thing if you have any interest in doing this and you're a beginner. There's a good chance you could come out of this with something. And if not, I'll tell you, as someone who's raced a decent amount at this point on virtual tournaments, it feels real. It'll get your adrenaline going. It'll you're against other people. You're in the voice chat. You're hearing an announcer and, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's good to consider getting in these and learning how the sims work.
And it's great race practice. I mean, if you live somewhere where you can't always get to real races, I mean, it's true that racing in the simulator is not identical to racing in real life, but the mental aspect is 100% identical. The ability to deal with your nerves, the ability to decide when to push and when to lay back a little bit and just take your place, to think strategically, when to pass, when to make your move, or hope that the guy ahead of you is pushing too hard and he's going to crash out. all of these mental aspects apply just as much in the sim as they do in real life. So even if you're focused on real world racing, sim racing is 100% worth it and fun.
Absolutely.
Double A says, I'm getting better at racing. Did you see my video from today by any chance with Evan?
Oh, I did not see your video today.
Evan Turner sat me down, tried to make me faster.
Oh, that's awesome. You couldn't have a much better teacher than that, right?
No, not really. I've really felt like I could have been a better student, but it was fun, and he had a lot of good tips. So, one of his tips. Tell me, you're no slouch yourself. Tell me what you think of this. I was doing tight lines slowly because I didn't want to go too fast and blow out the turns, and he said I should do wider lines at a higher speed and my times would go down, and sure enough they did, which kind of really blew my mind.
I could see that for sure. That definitely makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you, one thing you learn when you race a lot is that you, especially on new tracks, like with the whoop tracks, like on this, we just got our we get the track a week ahead. So on Sunday, we got our track for this week's tournament, for this week's WeBleed championship. And basically, the thing I've learned is that I always try to go too fast right away. And so I'll shoot, but the problem is even if you're good, even if you've done this a lot, like you don't automatically know all the turns you need to make. So you're overshooting every turn until you start to pull those turns in when you've learned how to turn around them. And the other way to fix that is to go farther out, ride it out. There's something I notice a lot is like, I only plan for the first gate, and then everything else after it is kind of a whatever happens sort of thing. And the other big thing I've noticed is like part of that, like going wide, is thinking about it as 3 gates or 5 gates instead of just one 100%.
100%.
And if you think about like, hey, I've got to go through 3 of these, let me not get too tight so I can do this nice loop around each of these gates. I think that's super valuable.
Yeah, really good advice. That's on my channel today. You can go watch that video. You can see how slow I am, or fast if you. Some people are like, I can't believe what a good pilot you are. You're so fast. And I'm like, man, I didn't feel that way, but maybe I'm just hanging out with the wrong people. I need to hang out with more slow beginners.
It's the same thing for me too, man. People are like, oh, you're so fast at whoop racing. I'm like, have you seen all these people at race against?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Then keep trying. I had a good time. I really appreciate Evan's time too. Looks like Blue Cheese DK is also in the chat. Thank you so much. She says, it's just my way of giving back after 6 years in the FPV community. More tournaments are come for intermediate and pros, maybe even freestyle competitions. Thank you so much for putting that up.
Awesome.
All right.
Hopefully, I was going to say, hopefully if that goes well, he can find some sponsors for those later. That would be nice.
I don't see why not.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, lastly, we got a rant.
Yes. I'm going to rant a little bit. And I'm
with you on this one too. I'm with you on
okay.
this one. Some of your rants, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit back and let Blunty rant and hope I don't get too many angry emails. But no, I'm with you. This is dumb.
Yeah. So, Crossfire, right? Crossfire.
Yeah, I know what Crossfire is. Look, I got a Crossfire module right here in my radio, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, 900 megahertz. Well, turns out there's 2 Crossfires, right? Because we have a Crossfire module at 900 megahertz, and then we've also got Crossfire protocol, CRSF, right? And that's the internal conversation in the radio. So now what happens? The
receiver talks to the flight controller using Crossfire protocol. You got Crossfire module, you got Crossfire protocol. It makes total sense.
Yes. Well, then we got the Tracer. So the Tracer came out.
Yeah.
Tracer's a different system, 2.4 gigahertz.
Tracer's not Crossfire. Great. No,
Tracer's not Crossfire at all. However, Tracer does talk over Crossfire protocol. And so...
so it uses 900 megahertz.
No, it uses 2.4 gigahertz, but it talks over Crossfire protocol. So for most people who are in the hobby, they understand this, and this is not like crazy for them. But for anyone new who goes to the page of Tracer and it says Tracer with Crossfire, I think that's like extremely confusing for a new pilot. And I've answered those questions many times. Not to mention, they came out with a new form factor for their radio modules. So when they came out with Tracer and they had this with the Crossfire, they came out and they made a Nano TX module. So Crossfire Micro TX and Crossfire Nano TX. Well, unfortunately, they already had the Crossfire Nano RX. So now we have a Crossfire...
now people they think the Nano RX goes with the Nano TX, and then they're like, what is this Crossfire Micro?
Yeah, or they see the micro RX, which has now been re-released as too. So they think those go together and they're not compatible. And they're like, "Do you have a Crossfire micro?" And you're like, "A micro TX or RX?" You know? And yeah, so that's a bit confusing for people too. So that's something I hear like.
It gets even more confusing because doesn't Express LRS also use the Crossfire protocol? Now here's where
it does.
Crossfire uses the Crossfire protocol on the wire between the receiver and the flight controller and inside the radio. Yes. And there is also a Crossfire packet format in the air, which is modulated using 900 megahertz LoRa. Tracer, I'm pretty sure Tracer also uses Crossfire packets in the air, but uses 2.4 gigahertz. And then you've got Express LRS, which uses Crossfire protocol on the wire, but not in the air, and is not compatible with any Crossfire stuff, but just used it as an easy way to interface with the flight controller.
Yes. And then to top all that off, we also have a bunch of light modules, right? So we have the JR Light Bay and the JR Standard Bay. And there's also some confusion because now the Crossfire Nano TX goes in the Light Bay. However, the Crossfire Light TX does not go in the Light Bay, it goes in the Standard Bay.
Because the Crossfire Lite is the light version of the full Crossfire module, just without Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, if I remember correctly.
As Sammy OFG in the chat says, who's on first?
And my little addition to this rant, which I added when I wrote the show notes and didn't tell you, is we've also got Crossfire Shot. And Crossfire Shot, first of all, people think it's a whole new protocol. When I did my roundup, they were like, well, you talked about Crossfire and Tracer, but what about Crossfire Shot? Crossfire Shot is just a bug fix inside the radio in OpenTX. It has nothing to do with your air protocol. And Crossfire Shot fixes that bug for all high-speed protocols, Express LRS, Ghost, etc., not just for Crossfire, which is also confusing.
Yes.
So people are like, I have Ghost. Why do I care about Crossfire Shot? And I'm like, no, you should care.
Yes, we're trying to call it, on the ELRS side, I think we're calling it Mixer Sync at this point because that's
that is a much better name.
Better term for it. But yeah, so just a lot of confusing things. If you see any noobs out there confused, maybe help them out. If you're confused, maybe this helped you out or confused you more.
Right. But we didn't want to help you. We just wanted to rant for a minute about how confusing this is.
Hey man, a lot of these names are the same and it's confusing. So.
Okay. I mean, having been there the whole time, I kind of understand how it happened.
Yeah,
no, I watched it happen in slow motion.
I can see how it all rolled out. It's just now that we're looking at the lineup, it's a little rough. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the news. We're even going to finish on time today. What a concept. Yeah. Thanks, Blunty. Really good news this week.
Another great news week. If you guys have any news or we missed any news or anything like that, go to email news@fpvknowitall.com with whatever that is. So no excuses if we miss anything because that means you didn't send it. So
yeah, would love to any FPV related news or drone related. Sure, send it. Can't hurt. Worst I can do is not cover it.
Yes.
People are saying we should cover the FAA and Lance being down. I didn't hear anything about that. I
saw like one Facebook post that was like 2 sentences until somebody in the chat mentioned it earlier. But yeah, nobody sent in and I asked all kinds of people. I didn't get any real info about it. So I think a lot of people don't end up using Lance, unfortunately.
Yeah, most FPV pilots just fly. We're not using Lance. So they are not using Lance. I use it.
Yeah, but I'll just quickly say there was reportedly like a Lance outage.
Yeah. All right. Well, and people are making other suggestions in the chat. You should email those suggestions, including a reference link to news@fpvknowitall.com. So, thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you to the patrons in the Discord server. Thank you to everybody in the chat and all the super chats. I believe we are caught up on super chats. And thank you to you, Blunty. I will see you next week, man.
Thank you very much, Joshua. It's been a great news stream. And we'll see everyone else here next week as well.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.